With the Valhalla, Aston Martin is entering a new world. No, not Viking afterlife, but a land where big beasts roam.
What I'm getting at here is that the Valhalla brings Aston into direct contact with some serious rivals. We'll tell you about that, discuss the brand's new mid-engine future, show you the best and worst bits, give you more skids, and get the deep dive from the car's chief engineer. But first, the Valhalla itself,
which we will get to in a bit. In the meantime, this is Aston's bread and butter, isn't it? Big, beefy, front-engined, rear-drive coupes and convertibles. It's been the Aston template for decades, but now something entirely different, a mid-engine supercar. We'll do a proper walk around of the Valhalla in a bit, but first, racetrack, car, shall we? So a helmet has miraculously appeared on my bonds, I know that, and we're in a prototype, could you tell? We are in a Valhalla which is 100% there for the hardware. Software is about 85%, they've said. So we need to look at this as a bit of a flavour of the car. The final launch of it isn't until late this year, and they're going to do that on a big, fast, high downforce track. What we have here today is Stowe Circuit, which is a little bit of a sort of Mickey Mouse triangle inside Silverstone. But still, it'll be a good test of powertrain, gearbox. This is Aston's first ever twin clutch 8-speed. Carbon ceramic brakes are standard in this, and all the other good stuff, and traction. See if we can actually get 1,000 horsepower onto the ground. Just get a little bit of understeer in it. It feels, you know, it doesn't feel super stiff actually. It feels like a bit soft, a little bit skippy, but we need to get some heat into it properly before we start making any confirmed decisions about it. I'm only in Sport Plus. We've got about 4 modes to play with in here, from EV, which, to be honest, I'm not going to bother with. I can tell you what, it'll go around silently for about 4 miles on electric. Then we get Sport, Sport Plus and Race. And Race is the mode that whacks the rear wing up by, what is it, 250 mil or something? So it blocks my rear vision, and I've got no rear vision out the back of this thing already. So getting a little bit of softness at the front, so I think we'll go for race mode and see what difference that makes. Let's just try bearing it out of here, right? Off we go. Unlike the Ferrari SF90, it's not trying to blow you away with its technology. It feels more friendly and forgiving than that. It's trying to there we are, a little bit of movement from it. Oh, I like this. It feels natural. It feels more McLaren-like than it does Aston Martin, but then Aston Martin have never really done a car like this before, so what would you expect? But it already feels like we've got a car that's doing too much for the tyre to cope with, because this is only on the Michelin PS5 tyre. They're also developing it on Cup 2s, and I think to really get the most out of it on track, you will need the Cup 2s.
A quick Valhalla recap. What we're looking at here is a central carbon tub with aluminium subframes supporting inboard pushrod suspension. It's very cool. Lots of aero with a max of 600 kilos at 150 miles an hour, and lots of tech with an electric motor for each front wheel, plus a third in the twin clutch gearbox. The engine is AMG's 4-litre twin-turbo V8 and alone develops 817 horsepower. The electric motors push that to 1,064 horsepower and 811 pounds-foot of torque. 0 to 62 takes 2.5 seconds, top speed 217. The engine isn't what I expected either. It's just not that soulful or tuneful, when in other Aston Martins it's plain brilliant. But it is very different here. Dry sump, flat plane crank and mounted in the back of a car for the first time ever. Not much wrong with the way it goes. Great throttle response, a flood of mid-range power, just a shame it doesn't rev beyond 7,000 RPM. I kept butting into the limiter because it felt like the car wanted to keep on revving.
Oh, you sort of need the traction control on though, just to give a bit of support, otherwise it feels like it might get quite lively all the time. Look at that! Didn't expect that from the Valhalla at all. Oh, you can practically session it from corner to corner. What a thing! This is so much more playful than I expected. It's got a little bit of movement in the chassis just into corners, which I think is slightly unsettling. I expected it to be a lot more sort of serious-minded and focused because of how racy it feels when you're in it, and it really does feel racy in here. It's not like an SF90, it's not like a Lamborghini Revuelto, it's something new. If I slow down, right, and just count it out of this corner, right, third gear. All right, plant it, 40 miles an hour, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 20. You know, it's not hanging about, is it? It's not hanging about. But really, it just wants to have a bit of a laugh. I think this is hilarious, this car. They said it was playful and they weren't wrong. I'm not sure, on these tyres at least, it hasn't got a super quick lap time in it, but it has got a super fun lap time in it, that's for sure. It's great. I am so surprised by that. I didn't think that would be the case at all. And then the brakes, well, they're just absolutely mighty. It's a little bit softer centered than I thought it would be, but it's like the Valkyrie, it's got that same sort of appeal to it, where it's much more drivable than you would ever give it credit for. I really like this, I really like it, because it looks so super, and yet it just wants to give you a bit of a friendly, warm hug. Oh, I think they have had a properly good time developing this car. I will say this though, that old AMG V8 has never been in the mid-engine car before, and now it's flat plane crank and all the rest. It's lost a bit of character. It's phenomenally effective, but it's not that charismatic. You don't really get any V8 overtone from it. It could almost be a V6, a V10, a V12. It's not got a detectable V8-ness to it. But anyway, let's just take it back in the pits. Right, that was quite fun, wasn't it? It's quite the car, this. Excuse me while I take the helmet off. Yeah, it's not quite what I expected. It is more magnanimous and generous-spirited than you think it's going to be, because you think it's going to be super aggressive and stiff and racy. So right, let's talk you through the good and the bad of this interior, because when you get in, it does feel very racy, but you get in through this massive door aperture because it carves into the roof so much, and you've got this huge great door, and it's quite heavy to pull down at the moment, but then you're in, and it looks like it's going to be really tight and cramped and Valkyrie-like in here, but actually it's pretty good. And the seating position with the steering wheel and the view down you get, I'm so impressed with it. It is absolutely spot on in terms of the ergonomics of operating it. I'm not entirely sure about the shape of the steering wheel. Made it a bit hard when we were sliding it around to know which bits of it you're grabbing. And then the thing I genuinely hate, okay, this chopped carbon stuff, which is everywhere in here. It's just, it looks like an old kitchen or bathroom worktop to me. It's horrible, but you don't have to have it. You can have proper structural carbon, you know, this stuff instead, and that is, for me, a much better option. So there's good and bad in here, but you can mostly turn it into a very good thing. You've got a digital camera mirror there, you've got bits and pieces, and a lot of the switchgear is recognisably Aston Martin. But of course the position you're sitting in is not like any other Aston Martin. The Valkyrie feels extremely bespoke. This feels more recognisably an Aston Martin. One more thing though, storage space. Because it's magnanimous and quite comfortable to drive, you think it's going to have storage space, but it has none. You've got a cup holder down here and there's some quite generous sized door bins, but aside from that, you're going to struggle. However, other things I want to show you, okay, if we get out here, I have to press this button and then a few seconds later this will pop because it has to depressurize the fuel tank because this is your fuel filler, and sooner or later it will click like that, and then that is your fuel filler. And on the other side you have a filler for your electricity because it's a plug-in hybrid and you can do that sort of thing. So this is very neat design. It's just a shame they haven't found anywhere to put kit.
Brace yourselves, chunky voiceover section incoming, because we're going to talk rivals and why the Valhalla is potentially in for a rough ride. You see, the Valkyrie was unique, there's nothing quite like it. Radical, single-minded and bonkers. But the Valhalla, well, that's really quite like a few other cars. It shares a near-identical technical makeup with the Ferrari SF90XX. Twin-turbo V8, 3 electric motors, 4-wheel drive. The XX version came along last year, Ferrari deciding to bonfire the XX badge by slapping it on a slightly uprated road car, resulting in a car that gives off mixed messages but remains fabulously fast, composed and capable, if a bit driving by numbers. The Aston has bigger numbers though, another 50 horsepower and 70 kilos more downforce, but also bigger numbers you don't want, 100 kilos heavier overall and £200,000 more expensive. Aston's being pretty punchy with price, so let's introduce a cut price bargain of a rival, the £450,000 Lamborghini Revuelto. Again, 3 E-motors partnering a monster engine for over 1,000 horsepower. No particular claims of downforce, but who needs them when you have a naturally aspirated V12, especially one that revs to the moon. As ever, Lambo understands what a supercar should be better than just about anybody else. And in this company, it looks a steal. And what about McLaren? Aston seems to be aping its British rival, creating a car with a technical template you could see McLaren opting for, if it ever chooses to connect the front drive shafts, and slotting it into a place where McLaren has a big gap between the £250,000 750S and the £2 million W1. And I don't know about you, but the car it most reminds me of, visually at least, is the AMG 1. So the Valhalla is going into a crowded, competitive market, one it's never competed in before, and choosing to go in with a price above everyone else's. Punchy move. So let's find out how the Valhalla justifies its price and positioning by having a nose around it with Chief Engineer Andrew Kay.
Andrew, it strikes me you must have had a bit of a challenge on your hand with this car, because there's a big gap, isn't there, between front engine, rear drive, your sort of traditional stuff, and Valkyrie, and I'm guessing you wanted this to sort of sit in the middle of that gap.
We did to some extent, but mainly we wanted to take what had been so exciting about Valkyrie and bring it to a slightly more mainstream audience. It's still a very exclusive car, but a little bit more mainstream and a little bit easier to live with as well. Valkyrie was a very, very extreme product. I think you've driven one.
Oh, yes.
You need to wear earplugs or you need to wear the ear defenders.
Yeah.
It's properly extreme.
Yeah.
This is a much more mainstream product.
I found it quite manageable to drive and sort of softer and less intense than I was expecting it to be. That's intentional, I guess?
It's intentional, yeah, absolutely, because of the way we've positioned the car. We haven't bolted the engine to the bulkhead as we did on Valkyrie, and that necessarily brings a level of refinement. We've then put an awful lot of technology into the car, and the car's really a statement of intent of where Aston is going,
right?
Following the direction that Lawrence Stroll has set, which we've got to push more for performance, more for technology. So the car's really pushing us forwards in those areas.
I love the fact you've got the dampers on display here. So why did you go for an inboard system?
So as soon as you put the drive shaft into the car, you need to lift the dampers up. But we wanted to maintain this very, very low scuttle height and this very dramatic low surfacing we've got through here, without sacrificing upward vision. So keeping this surface down was a priority, and the way to do that is to lay the damper over once you've done that and put the damper in this position, there are some aerodynamic benefits to the airflow inboard of the wheel, but also it lets you open up these apertures and just show off a cool feature.
So that is only to show off. There's no need for airflow or anything.
There is some airflow, but the main reason was for fun, to show it off.
It's quite porous, isn't it? Because you look down there, you can see the radiator, and I love the fact you look down here and you've got the double wishbones and everything else. You can actually see into the car.
There's an awful lot of visible engineering on the car.
Yeah.
All of it is functional. Everything that comes into the front of the car is used for cooling. So we've got 3 big radiators across the front of the car. Main radiator exits here, but also they do vent through these wheel arch vents. These also serve to evacuate the air that's coming from the side coolers as well. So all of these openings are very, very important.
Excellent. Right, I'm just going to come around this side because obviously we're running a Michelin Pilot Sport 5S tyre today, and on the track it starts to feel a little bit limited for grip. When you're on track at least, and you think maybe you'd want a Cup 2, but you have also developed it for Cup 2, haven't you?
Exactly. We've developed both sets of tyres specifically to the car. The Cup 2 specific for track and getting the very last bit of performance out of the car. The PSS 5 we've developed more to give a more playful and agile feeling to the car, which I think you felt today. So this tyre for play, and the Cup 2 for flat out performance. Yes.
And then quite a lot of aerodynamics. Well, you can see at the front you've got a lot of aero. So you've got some active aero under the front, haven't you?
Yes, we've got active aero front and rear.
Yeah.
So at the front of the car, although you can't see it, is a wing that looks very similar to an F1 car's wing.
Okay.
So we've effectively got 2 diffusers in front of the front wheels, which can be raised and lowered. So we've got full control over them. Joining them is a spar that acts as a gurney, that when we turn off the aero, the gurney comes down and it shuts off the airflow that would otherwise go through the underfloor treatments.
Okay.
So we're able to, by a very simple, elegant mechanism that moves up and down, control the airflow across the whole front of the car.
Yeah.
So as well as the active aero we've got on the back of
yeah,
the car.
so that all works in conjunction with that.
Absolutely.
You've got no
and they're
manual control
They're
of
constantly managing to balance the airflow.
It's quite interesting because the rear view mirror, when you're on track, you basically just use it as a wing observation device. You just look and watch what the wing's doing in your mirror.
When the wing pops into air brake or when it's down in DRS, you're very aware of it.
Yeah.
You don't see what the front wing's doing, but it's working in concert. Not always doing the same thing, sometimes doing different things to move the centre of pressure forwards and backwards and optimise the performance.
You're very clean down the sides. You've got no, that's an intake?
It is, yeah.
But you've got no big intakes for the engine. That's all dealt with up here.
Which is really key to delivering this theme and this very clean body side. So the lower intakes are for the engine and gearbox oil coolers.
Right.
So they're fed actually from airflow from the front wheel arch through the turning vanes you see behind these panels, controlling that airflow and getting it into that lower duct. That's quite difficult to get the airflow to go in and
because
not
the
to go
airflow
out.
wants to peel
it
off
wants
the
to
car.
peel out, and then the real trick is the snorkel on top of the car.
Yeah, because this is fascinating. I love the way it's recessed down and you've got this high lid here, and then so you've got a big intake there, but it just doesn't look like it particularly.
Yeah, so the roof is very contoured. We wanted to have room over your head so that you can comfortably wear a helmet in the car, but then we needed quite a big snorkel and we didn't want a very high roof line, so the snorkel and the central air channel are all recessed down to keep that clean line of the car.
Yeah, and I had a look in there. You've got like 3 different intakes in there. What's good? Where's all that air going?
So we're feeding 3 different systems. We're feeding the air boxes for the turbos. We're feeding the charge air coolers, which are very large air-to-air charge coolers above the engine, mounted directly over the banks of the engine horizontally. And then we've actually separated the charge air coolers for the third feature, which is the turbo cooling duct. So the engine is a hot V, meaning the turbos are right in the middle of the V, generating a huge amount of temperature. And it's quite difficult to get airflow into that area in a mid-engine car. And so the central bit of the flow is directed down into the turbos and flows all the way through the car and out the back, taking all of that heat out.
Yeah, I want to find out more about this because most cars that have very powerful hot V engines in the back tend to have quite porous engine covers to get all the heat out. So where are you sending the heat? Well, how's it coming out of the engine? Because there's a lot of cover there. Well,
that was another challenge of this theme, wanting to keep a solid finish there without putting grills in. And the snorkel is the key, bringing that cold air in and through the exhaust system. We've got two lots of outlets on the exhaust, the top exit that you see here, and hidden exhausts down
We're
in
going to
the
come on
diffuser,
to this,
which we'll come to. The top exits actually help by entraining some of that cold air out of the, or sorry, the hot air out of the engine bay.
Cool.
So as the exhaust plume comes out of the exhaust, it pulls some of that
hot air, low pressure,
surrounding air
and
with it.
pulls
Exactly.
that air in, air out with it. But it looks like you've got some air coming that's designed to channel down the sides around the exhaust.
One of the challenges with the top exit exhaust is that the hot plume, there's a risk of it going and damaging the paintwork on the back of the car. So actually the airflow that flows just to the side of the snorkel here flows all the way down in a channel, flows around and is forced up as the two airflows meet, just where the Aston Martin badge is on that rear cover. And that creates a cold air layer between the hot exhaust plume and the paintwork and keeps it protected.
Wow.
So it looks complicated and it looks as though it's you know, a design feature, hugely functional, and hours and hours and hours of work between design and the engineering and the thermal teams to make that work.
I'm not surprised. So where's the exhaust going? What's going on in there?
So it is quite a complicated layout to achieve this. So the exhaust starts in the hot V right in the centre, directly under here.
Yep.
It first goes through the catalyst, from the turbo into the catalyst, into a GPF filter that we have to have for emissions. It then comes straight through, straight down and straight out the back.
So that's what I can see going on sort of here. It comes straight through and out.
Exactly. And that comes out down by the diffuser, and that's our primary big diameter main high performance outlet.
Yeah.
So when you're really driving the car sportily, that's where all the sound is coming from.
Right.
But
then, go on.
We have a valve in that system to shut it off when we're doing urban driving and to help us with noise pass-by regulations. And when we shut that off, the airflow is, or the gas flow is redirected forwards in the car, turns around and comes out through this gas pipe. So it's actually doing almost a complete spiral inside the engine bay. And of course, we have to keep all of that cool with the airflow that we've got coming through.
Yeah. So how did you sort of, was this a eureka moment when you realised you were going to have to send the exhaust out the top, or did you always know you were going to have to do something quite clever in there?
It was a design challenge. It was a feature we wanted in the car from the original theme. We wanted to try and protect it. It wasn't working for us with the V8 engine, so we needed the lower exhaust, but we wanted to capture this. So it was a way of achieving both.
Yeah.
What we hadn't expected was the added benefit of using it to entrain the airflow out from the engine bay. That was a piece of learning that we went through from the simulations we were doing on the heat management challenge.
And as far as I can work out, this is the first time this engine has been in the back of a car rather than the front.
Yes.
So did that?
Well, and it's also a new engine. So it's based on an existing AMG engine, but we've reworked it extensively, both on the intake side and the exhaust side, and some of the internals have been changed as well. So it's
basically the block, and not a lot else.
Correct.
Right, so basically an all-new engine, but you've had to do a fair bit of plumbing and playing around to get it to work all right.
Yeah.
And then finally, we've got the rear wing here, which comes up 250 mil or so, doesn't it?
Yeah, here we're seeing it in the, normally this would be the race mode.
To lean on.
This would normally be the race mode position, raised up 255 mil. And then once it's in that position, it can then go through a range of pitch angles, from air brake, fully vertical, through various downforce modes depending on the speed and the pitch and the braking and what's happening with the car. It'll constantly vary the downforce that it's providing, and it goes all the way down to a DRS mode to really kill off the downforce and give us top speed.
Yeah. And all of this, and how much weight, what does the car weigh?
So 1655 kilograms is the dry lightest.
weight.
Yeah. Complete with the magnesium wheels, which we've got on this car.
Yeah. This doesn't sound too bad to me. Are you really reasonably happy with where it's ended up weight-wise?
Well, I'm a chief engineer. I'm never happy with where the weight is. It's never light enough. But considering the amount of technology in the car, what I think is what I'm really pleased with is the car doesn't. It feels like when you drive it, it feels very agile, feels very nimble on the road, and ultimately that's what you want as the engineer.
Yeah, great. Andrew, thank you very much indeed. That's been really interesting.
Thank you very much for your time.
Cool.
Has Aston Martin risen to the challenge of developing a top-end supercar? Yeah, it really has. And more than that, the Valhalla feels like a genuine Aston Martin. It's not far off as exciting to sit in and be around as the Valkyrie, yet has the same comfort and usability as one of the front-engine coupes. which makes the lack of any load space doubly frustrating. It's a mistake Ferrari made with the SF90, and we didn't expect to see Aston repeating it. Other issues? The engine is shorter on character than I thought it would be, and it's skated around a bit on the PS5 tyres. It'll need the Cup 2s to really unlock the chassis. But I'm genuinely impressed with the electronic integration, the chassis balance and, oddly perhaps, the ride comfort. 999 are being built, and at £850,000 the price is toppy. But on initial impressions, Aston has found a niche. The Valhalla isn't a copycat, but a genuinely exciting new supercar that can go toe-to-toe with the Italians. It feels different, special. I know. Accuse me of British bias if you want, and yeah, this is still a prototype. But I genuinely think Aston has a hit on its hands.